Hi everyone and welcome. This is Aliesel from Artist Palette. We are doing one of the Christmas cards, the stocking. You can have it already outlined just by printing and tracing with light at the back of your paper, just so that it makes it a little bit easier to follow. If you are looking to draw it out yourself, you can go to the other tutorial and see how to draw it out. Give yourself a little bit of a challenge and also change things up if you want to, add or change what's in the stocking. So for me, I am using an HB pencil. You can use this to, or a 3H to gently, you can barely see the lines for my outline because I want to make sure that I can still erase. And I'm going to apply a bit more pressure with, I like to use charcoal. So I have a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. You don't need all of these. If you press harder, you do get darker lines. You can just have one of these and just lightly press and press a lot harder to get dark lines and get all that nice contrast. I also have an eraser, of course, a smudger, or you can use a Q-tip. So I like to use pretty much the same things for all of my tutorials for drawing. All right, so what we can do here is just get started. You can pause and take your time throughout this video. We are going to start with more of a 2B pencil and then work our way up. You can also just start with an HB if that's all you have too. Okay, now with my 2B or just your HB pencil, one of the first things we can start with is getting more of a darker outline just around the top of the stocking. So if you're making it look more like a sock like I did, you can start following up some slightly rounded streaks, lines, curling up the side a little bit. And we'll just go a little bit closer. Yeah, I'm just following around, swooping it up the middle, a bit more straight, and up the sides, curling it inwards. See, I'm just curling it a little bit inwards. They don't have to be all the way from top to bottom for these lines. That's a little bit of texture. And I just worked around where some of this holly is sticking out. So in the middle, after you've done that, I'm just going to outline this leaf where the holly is. So you can see where I'm going. So that is going to be there. In the middle, I'm going to just lightly streak at the top and at the bottoms, get a little bit darker in those sections, leaving the middle a little bit lighter. On the side here on the right, filled it in and filling it in a little bit more. So I have another little piece of holly right around here. Just going to also give that a bit of an outline. Don't need it all super dark with the outline. Okay. And just popping out, making it more streaky right in this top part. And just pressing harder, so you can switch to something darker, like a 4B if you want to. Just pressing harder at the tops and bottoms of those streaks, those lines that are at the top, and then following my way down, just pressing A little bit harder, but not too hard, just for the sock, because I don't want a very solid outline. So coming up here. And what I want to do here, depending on the texture you're going for, whatever you like. If you like the old sock look, I did a little bit of cross hatching, going sort of up and down in a sense, but following more of the groove. So like in the heel here, see how I just rounded it out? Some curved lines, following it like it's wrapping around the bottom and then wrapping around a bit at the top. And then horizontally, like it's rounded once again, curling the lines like it's wrapping it around the sock instead of just straight. Yeah, just making it look like it's curled a bit more. Darkening up and pressing harder, doing more lines at the back where this heel is. And a little bit even into, as it arches into the rest of the foot, or as it would. A little bit more close to the bottom here. And a little bit more on this side, the left side of this sock. Okay, so wrapping it around this side. Again, cross hatching, just lots of lines crossing over each other. And then again, a little bit down here. Mostly the lines going more vertical at the bottom is what I've done. And then just pressing a little bit harder, doing a lot more overlap, so up and down and side to side on the edges of the sock. And I can just deepen up the outline towards the bottom. More of a solid outline here. More of a solid outline before it hits the top. And on the sides, you can switch to a 4B or even a 6B. I am going over these lines. See, just along the bottom. So now I can see a little bit more of the detail at the bottom of the sock. So here it is a bit closer. Okay, and I can just pull down and accent a couple of the lines coming from the top. It just looks a little bit more bumpy. All right. So you can use your smudger just to smooth out the tops and bottoms, going through to the middle. So the middle is still a bit lighter, so I'm just pulling it up, and then from the top pulling it down. And then down here, pulling it more horizontally through the middle. Still lighter through the middle, but pulling those lines in, smoothing out the lines. Wrapping it around through here. Just getting it a bit more filled in. And if you want to, you can just highlight throughout the middle, just kind of erase and open up some of these streaks. So it's a bit lighter. You don't have to press super hard with your eraser, even at the bottom here. Right through the middle, it's a little bit lighter. And with charcoal, you gotta be careful you don't just wipe it away because it just smudges everywhere. Open it up a little bit there. So if you want more of the streaky lines, you like that texture, just lightly add it in, maybe with an HB or a 2B. And you can add a little bit of highlight just in case at the top if you feel like it's a bit too dark in this middle section right there. Okay, so I think I have a good amount of highlight and shadow. So now we can work more on the top, what's inside the stocking. Just a little, actually I just noticed a little bit of cleanup right here on the edge of the stocking. Just get rid of some of these extra lines that I don't really care about sticking out. There. So back to the 2B. I'm going to start with, I think, the teddy bear. So if you have it outlined, great. I'm just going over, so that was the body, maybe just on some of the, just a little bit kind of gentle where the holly is. You can see a little bit better as I just go over it. Let's see what we're working around. Okay. So outlining on the head, around the ears. So in the ears, let's go a little bit closer again. In the ears, yes, very rounded. You can kind of bring it in just a little bit more rounded. The face is overlapping up into the ear just a little bit. There's a little curved line to show that inner ear look. A little C shape on the side, a little curved line. And for the eyes, I'm just going to press harder on the left sides, wrap it around, and then just press a little bit lighter, filling it in. So you can switch to something darker like a 6B or a 4B. Pressing harder just on the, oh, this pencil is a little bit choppy, that's okay. On the left side, so it doesn't look like it's just pure black eyes. If you like that little glow from a tiny little reflection dot is fine. Okay, so bring this up a little bit closer. Okay, so that's closer. And then, actually what you could do is if you went too dark, you could just lighten it up with a bit of your pencil. Your eraser on your pencil or just your eraser. Okay. my 2B again. Just a little accent around the nose area. So you can go around the nose. All right. Left side, maybe fill it in a bit more. Little line coming down, like a little smile. And then around the head, I just swooped it, just kind of pressing a little bit harder on the very left and right side, but not too much right in the middle, so it just stops it from looking like the head's really squished. All right. Okay, as I fill this in a little bit more, just gently going around this inner circle around the nose. Going to lightly streak curved lines, wrapped around the head, on the top of the ear. So I went for this ear, I just went on the right side, just kind of filled it in a little bit more there, and then on the right side, or sorry, the left side on this right one, and then the right side on this left one. So it looks like you can see more of the top of the head detail. And then swoop, just slightly streak down the forehead, shaping around the face, very rounded, not pressing really hard here. And then, like a crosshatch, I brought it vertically more down the middle. Okay, and then the body, a little bit more filled in on this right side over here. And on the arm, just on each side of that armpit. So I'm doing the curved lines to make it look like it's curling up. Getting some shadow from the bottom of the belly and chest upwards to just the upper chest. It's a little bit lighter. And gently cross-hatching under the neck. Like that. So we have some lighter spots. Working around the holly, of course. You can also use your smudger to, again, smooth it out. Smooth it out just a little bit. Going to pop out some of the highlight. And a little bit in the forehead, so it's a little bit lighter, and in the belly, upper chest and belly area that's kind of towards the middle. Even a little bit on one of the shoulders. There, it's a little bit smoother. Bring this up a bit closer. And you could use just a 4B or press harder on, say, like some of the outlines that you want to be a bit more obvious and visible. So if you want more of the side of the head or just wrapping around underneath the head a bit, just touch up those areas. Or just a shadow below the holly here where it's going into the stocking. It can help with a bit of shadow here. I just like to touch up on my cross-hatching lines. I just like the style, I like the look, and if you do too, you can touch it up one more time. There we go. Now I'm going to leave it. Switching back to that 2B that I was using. Now I'm going to work on the candy cane. So a couple things you can do. If you like the pattern that I've done here, you know, dark light, dark light, dark light, dark light, we can make sure that, for example, the dark sections, we start with those. And my trick was mostly trying to darken up the edges where it's wrapping around. A little bit lighter, then darker again, so it's wrapping around the other side. Like that. And it's a little bit lighter down the middle. Okay. So very light. Filling this in. Again, this dark spot. Pressing a bit harder. And you can press a lot harder on the edge next to the teddy bear, because probably a bit more of an obvious line is very helpful. I'm just erasing some of the edge lines. Okay. So I pressed not very hard whatsoever. For the light sections, it still has a little bit of a shadow, right? Just not as dark as the darker parts of the pattern on the candy cane. So I just lightly brushed it in a way, streaked up some light lines, and then went back to, here's my dark section. So I'm going to darken it, bring it towards the middle, and leave it a bit lighter. As it curls, I try to just go a little bit darker overall. See on this curled part of the candy cane, so it looks like it might be just getting a bit more of a shadow from there. And then you can also, with your smudger, bring it towards the middle. Just run along the edges without fully outlining the candy cane. I didn't go with my pencil and press really hard. I like my smudger for that for the most part. It's really good for getting faint, soft lines. You can also just, again, use your eraser down some of the middle. You feel like it's hitting a little bit more of that light. Also just on the lines, if you feel like there's too much of a dark line, just sort of erase that. And then you can use your smudger to get that line in, just a delicate line. Okay, so this is my 4B. Trying to touch up on the dark ones. Just a couple streaks. And down here we have that also pretty dark. Getting rid of my little smudges. Here it is a bit closer. Okay, pretty cool. Again, just making sure these are as dark as I want it to be. There we go. And there's our kind of glossy, shiny candy cane. Pretty cool. So just at the very tip here where it's darker, don't need it ultra dark like that for the outline. Okay. Now we can fill in the holly that's on the side. So as usual, the lighter one, my lighter charcoal, so the 2B. The one that's the leaf that's over here, so this is more noticeable of what like the full holly over here with the leaves and the 3 little berries in the middle. I'm just going to move that one more time. Okay. So we have it sort of outlined. I kept it pretty simple. Just I accented a couple streaks up the middle and then streaked outwards, like those little veiny streaked lines that are following through. And then I'm going to just streak out from side to side towards the ends to help deepen up that crease. Then I used my smudger, streaked it out on each side. You can go over some of the edges. I'm going to use my 4B just to make the outline against everything else a tiny bit more obvious. But not like out here on this side. Try not to press too hard. I want it to look like it was a little bit lighter overall. And then touch up on the inner streaks one more time, like up the middle, to complete that look. Very nice. Alright, doing the holly in the middle for this side. And just see I'm just swirling it out a little bit into the center, leaving it white about the center. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the center. I'm going to use my smudger and I think it does a lot of the shaping for me, to be very honest. Feel free to touch up with a little bit of an eraser or touch up with a couple more streaks after towards the center. I don't want it to be too perfectly outlined, but I did want it with my 4B or something darker between in the middle, darkest. So it looks like it's kind of really bunched together. And then basically from here on the leaves, like we did over here, same thing. Gentle outline, but start down the middle, streak it out. And this little one you don't see too much. Do that and then take your smudger again. Go up the middle, drag it out to the sides. outline. I'm kind of smushing it out, going a little bit darker next to my teddy bear. Felt like it was a bit more shadowy over here. And this one at the bottom, hanging over the edge, a little bit towards the top, a little bit lighter towards the middle and bottom of it. Alright, and then back to my darker pencil, the 4B, touching up on the holly one more time, down the middle, some of these streaks a little bit more outlined. Maybe this one a little bit more outlined. Just very roughly going around some of the edges here without pressing too hard to make it a little bit more obvious and pop out with the leaves. So I felt like this one on the very right, this leaf was kind of sitting in front of pretty much the one on the left next to it. So I'm just going to darken just a couple extra streaks towards the bottom here and on the side to make it look like it's a little bit sitting more in the shadowed background. That's all. And then all I did was just go over some lines a little bit more just to pump up the contrast on shadows or anything like that. If you need to go over some outlines, clean up any smudges with an eraser. And that is our stocking. So I kept the lines that were overlapping this holly over top of the one next to it, made it a little bit, actually a lot more darker to keep it, the shadow a little bit more obvious, so it's lighter here and a little bit darker behind it. Okay, now I'm just doing a couple touch-ups. This is my 6B, maybe a couple touch-ups with some streaks. Some of those cross hatchings. And then you can sign it. I will, this is my HB, I'm going to sign it, probably just at the bottom here. This is a good idea. Alright. There you go. Something cute, fun. Could be just for yourself or a Christmas card to somebody else. I know that art is always a great gift. Handmade. Thanks for joining me. We have lots more coming up. And maybe you'll join me for another one. Maybe you just love drawing. See you another time. Check it out on artistpaletterm.com or Artist Palette Derm on Facebook. We love seeing results, so post your results there whenever you're done and if you added any additions. Thanks guys, bye!